Hi, welcome everyone on 17th World Education Summit. And we are here, our post-lunch session and the showstopper session for this Sunday. And we have our esteemed panelists from the Pan India who are working in the higher education domain. And we are going to discuss on the importance of PPP model in higher skill and technical education. So I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Dr. Parag Sanghani, Provost, PP, Savani University from Surat. Welcome, Dr. Parag, sir, and he will moderate this session.
Thank you.
Welcome, Parag, sir, for 17th World Education Summit. We have Radhika Bhandari, Director, Western India Institute of Aeronautics, Ahmedabad. Welcome, Radhika, ma'am. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit. We have Dr. Kanchana Bhaaskaran, Pro Vice Chancellor, Vellore Institute of Technology. She is live from Vellore right now. Welcome, Kanchana, ma'am. Welcome to the World Education Summit. And we have Professor K. Rama Mohan Rao, Vice Chairman, Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Welcome, Rao, sir. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit. It's all our pleasure to have you here. And we have Professor Rabindra Chandra Bhattacharya, Vice Chairman, Globsyn Business School. Welcome, Rabindra, sir, to 17th World Education Summit. So we are looking forward for a well discussion, and I handed this session to Dr. Parag, who will moderate this session. So Parag, sir, is over to you, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek, and I'm very thankful for the elites and all the organizers of this World Education Summit to inviting all of us here to deliberate on a very relevant topic. We have a very experienced, people in our panel, and collectively, if you put, we have more than 100 plus years of experience in higher education in today's panel. So, in that particular aspects, it's a very relevant to be discussed on this topic on a PPP mod in a higher technical and skill educations in India. And I must say that the way the new education policy has been envisaged and the way this new education policy our visionary prime minister would like to implement, it required a huge resource. And when it comes to the resources, we always say that government has a limited resource pool, and in that case only option available is a PPP mod, public private partnership. We are doing that in infrastructure, we are doing that into the energy, we are doing, so why not in education? And that's the primary question, and many governments now are trying for this kind of a PPP mode of education. In this particular panel, the flow is like that. Our esteemed speakers will speak for their thoughts for at least 5 minutes on the relevant topic, and then we will deliberate based on the few questions which is in my mind, which we all should be focusing these discussions on that. So I will start with the Professor Rabindra Chandra from Globsyn Business School, and rather I am giving the introduction, just few minutes introductions of Professor themselves about their institutions, and their work profile will be great for all the our listeners. So once again, I welcome all the delegates to this World Education conclave, and we will look forward for a great discussion on this most relevant topic on PPP mod in a higher technical and skill education in India. So I invite Professor Rabindra Chandra from Globsyn Business School to
thank you,
share his view on this project.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thanks to the organizers, particularly Dr. Robi Gupta, to organize this 5-day program on World Education Meet. I think at a very opportune time, because if it was in a physical situation, not more than 300, 400, 500 people might have attended. Today, I am attending each and every session of elects, and it is a great occasion so that many of us can listen to each other and find some opinion. Now, the issue is that how can we make all the stakeholders aware of the problems and opportunities that we have in the field of education. So here I want to give some figures that USA, UK, South Africa, Germany, France, Brazil, Finland. Now we say that India is probably the 7th largest or 10th largest economy in the world. But if you look at GDP per capita, it is $63,000 in US, $42,000 in UK, $47 in Germany, $41 in France, $45 in Finland, a small country like Finland, and $1,000 in Ireland. As against that, India has got only 1.88, or let us say $2 per capita income. And it compares miserably with even Bangladesh, which has got 1.89. So therefore, the moderators have the point you made that in this country, poor country, and with population of 1340 million to 1380 million, only other country which can surpass us is China with 1439 million people. So there is definitely a need for somebody other than the government to come forward and see that the education goes to the lowest level and to the farthest part of the country. So I think this is the opening remarks that I have, that there is a great need for the private organizations to come forward. Now, yesterday, Philip Kotler was giving a talk at CII Brand Conclave. And he says that many rich people are coming forward today to give back to the society. And we hear even this pandemic period, people like Ambani, people like Jeff Bezos, everybody is getting richer and richer. So there was a conference of 400 people, business people last year at USA, where they decided, like Michael Gates, Bill Gates, and here we have got Narayana Murthy, they want to give back. And then there is a CSR, where is also there is a quota given. So I think we should all put together how to address that, because it is easy to ask money, but whether it will go to whether it will be spent in the right way. So how do you do that? I think that is the issue. So I think, Parag sir, there is a great need for private finance in this PPP model in this country. And I think today, as far as myself is concerned, Globsyn started in 2002, and we are a standalone business school. We wanted to go in depth, whereas we were asked by the state government to become a university, we didn't do so. But with now this multidisciplinary thing, we are thinking of going forward in other ways also. But I think rather, sir, I would listen to you. I have got some experience, direct experience with PPP model in skill area, because Globsyn really started with skill in education. See, I was teaching at IIM Calcutta for 18 years. I went back. The reason is that in IIM, we do not take anybody less than 90 to 99 percentile CAT score. What happens to the thousands and thousands of others? And the country needs managers. So we decided to have a school which takes from 60 to 80 CAT and make them better person. So that's how we started. So we are more skill oriented than otherwise. But recently we have also understood the value of research, and we are very much in research today. So I would rather like to listen from others today about education. But I can give some of my experience in the field of skill, as well as I had experience of working as a collaborator with ISRO. So I'm prepared to give that later on if needed. Thank you very much, sir. Over to you, sir. Parag, sir.
Okay. I think I had unmuted. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Chandra. And we have Professor Sunil Rai, Vice Chancellor, UPES, Dheradun. And I think I now request Professor Sunil Rai to share his views on need of PPP mod and the challenges of a PPP mod, in a Indian higher education, technical and skill education. Over to you, Professor Rai, please. Hello. Can you hear Professor Rai? Okay. You need to unmute yourself. You need to
No,
unmute
I can
yourself.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Now it's fine. Now
I have unmuted.
it's fine.
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
Now it's fine? Okay, fine. All right. It was done for me.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you very much, Dr. Parag, for getting me in. And I pay my compliments to all my fellow colleague panelists who are joining here today, the esteemed panelists. I thank ELITs and all other organizers for giving me this opportunity. I am traveling, so I have just logged in from my mobile, and the signals in this part of the country are not too good. So I will just quickly express my views so that just in case I get disconnected, I tender my apology right up front. Now, as far as this topic is concerned, it's a very, very important and a relevant topic, the public-private partnership. This is the only way to go. The way the volumes are going up in the country, the way we are, the now NEP is also the good part that NEP has said is that
I think we have lost Professor Rai. So in that case, I request Professor K. Rammohan Rao to, continue our discussion. See, I always say, what is PPP mod? And why we said PPP mod? Because already private education is a part of Indian higher education system. So when I say PPP mod, it's a joint venture between government or public funding and the private funding. Right now, either we have a public funded institution, or right now we have always privately funded institution. But when we talk about the PPP mod, it's a mixture of both. I think we have Professor Sunil Rai again back. You can continue, sir. That's fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. So as I was saying that this is a very relevant topic of PPP, public-private partnership mode. Essentially, the NEP also is recommending that we should do it. The public-private, they have already killed the discrimination between the private and public institutions. Now, in any kind of a partnership, I think there has to be three things. One, that there has to be a mutual respect for each other partners. Public is all the public systems, and private is all the institutions like us. While we respect the regulatory system, they also respect us. That's first part. Not that it is not there, but I thought I will put this on the table. One is that mutual respect and belief that we can do it together. We share the purpose, we share the objectives, and so on and so forth. The second one is about sharing the all kinds of resources and developmental needs. For example, there are labs. I'm talking about the technical education. Uh, we combine with Sulini University because they have got excellent labs as far as healthcare services concerned. They combine with us because we got outstanding labs as far as civil engineering, petroleum, and electronics is concerned. So one is about this kind of a sharing. Now, this thing should also become, when it's public-private mode, it has been found in past that the public infrastructure is more available to public education systems. It is not that it is denied, but it is not taken at the same. So the second aspect is very important, sharing of the all technical and otherwise resources. That is the so there's a second part I would like to put it for the consideration of the panel. And the third and the most important aspect of the public and private partnership is the purpose for which this partnership is getting into has to be made absolutely clear to both the parties, and then these partnerships can actually progress. So towards us, we're here in UPS, we are actually combining with the government of Uttarakhand for entrepreneurship, for development of ecology, for designing of Himalayan ecosystem, and so on and so forth. So I think this public-private partnership mode is the only way, the kind of volumes, the kind of aspirations the nation has for the progress of the society. The only thing is we need three things. We need the mutual respect, we need sharing of resources, and we need clear definition of purpose. my 2 pence. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Parag.
Thank you. I think we will quickly go to Professor Rao to elaborate his views on this particular topic. Yes, Professor Rao.
Yeah. Good afternoon, all the panelists. Thank you, Dr. Parag, for inviting me. So I think the backdrop for our discussion is the National Education Policy 2020, wherein 3 concerns, I believe, are very important to consider the PPP mode. One is the low level of GE or gross enrollment ratio. And the second is commercialization of higher education and education, if for that matter. And the third is the quality of the education. So it is well established that the output of all the educational institutions, the students who are coming out of the educational institutions, are not acceptable or employable by the industry. So in this backdrop, so how to expand the accessibility of education to the millions and how to achieve the target is set up as 50% GER by 2035. So how to reach it, that requires a lot of capacity development by establishing number of schools, colleges, universities in this country. So that is the one point. The second is the commercialization issue. So now if we look at, we have government promoted institutions, schools, colleges, universities. We have private institutions. We have government supported private institutions. We call it as grant in aid colleges, or government grants are given to the private colleges. And some colleges are promoted by philanthropists purely on service mode. And some are by the missionaries. And of course, the minority category is another category that is existing. So in these, say, institutions, now the concern is the expansion and the enhancement of quality in that. So when we are thinking of public-private participation, the kind of providing grants cannot be treated as participation in the education system. So now that is to be redefined. So when we are looking at the participation in management of the institutions, regulation of the system, enhancement of the quality of the system, particularly the human resource that is say involved in this system, how to recruit, select the human resources into the system. If the public participation, proper rules, regulations governing the selections of it, I don't think we can achieve the targets that we are having it. So it is a desirable mode. There is no doubt about it. Public-private participation is a desirable mode through which only we can achieve the goals that are set up by the say government through national new educational policy that we have. And throughout the world, wherever we see, the government involvement in education is definitely at a higher proportion, and we cannot totally leave the system or leave the major part of the system to the private institutions. So when we allow the private institutions, one thing that happens, Mr. Rabindra mentioned, the educational institutions will concentrate in urban areas only. We cannot reach to the rural villages because they have the business models, not a philanthropic model or a service model. Private institutions, though they commit when they register in the form of a society as a non-profit organization, but finally the results we could see, they are turning up as a commercial models. And it is throughout the country, it is the same. It is not restricted to one state or other. So this model has to be well thought of, and we should have a clearly defined, as mentioned by my predecessor speaker, the professor, the vice chancellor. We should have a clear guidelines in allowing or to introduce this mode into the system. So that is my opinion, sir. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Rao. Professor rightly mentioned there are different type of institutions, and we need to have a clarity on, what are the objectives of this PPP mode arrangements. I think now I request, Professor Kanchana, to speak on this particular topic and share her views on the same. Generally, we have a ladies first, but in this panel discussion, we have not followed that. So, Madam, and then I think Miss Radhika will be there. Yes, Madam, please, all yours. Yeah, share your views. You are you are mute. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Higher education institutions play a very significant role in the development of the citizen, society, nation as a whole, and even the world also. And the education sector happens to be the major source of employment in India. And we have increasing population, exponentially increasing population. And we find 1 in every 4 is going to be an Indian education system output, a graduate. And in 1971, India's GER was around 5, as previous speaker was pointing out. Ours is 26 now. At that time, 71, China's was less than 1, and now it is around 50 for China. And we have 350 million in school-going age, tertiary population. And in order to cater to all of them, one university every week for the next 15 years, we need to start. And 50 schools and up to 300 teachers every week, we will have to have. And somewhere I read this. And research investment also, in addition. India is having 0.69% of GDP, whereas the other countries, 2.8 for USA, 4.3 for Israel, 4.2 for South Korea, and all that. And we had in 1996 0.62, still we are around the same value. And Chinese expenditure on R&D, all of us know, it quadrupled. And US expenditure also is increasing. South Korea, we need not ask at all. And China, taking that into account, that started a double first-class university plan in which they aimed to become the higher education power in 2050. And they consider the PhD scholars as the workforce of research business. And the research is actually driven by businesses, corporates in US, China. And the government funding is the only source for us in India, which is really small, as the previous speaker also pointed out. And UGC's annual report of 2017-18, what I was able to get, it says around 59% of grants for central universities it gives, 18% to colleges of central universities affiliated, and they have only 15.8% of PhD students output from the country. And we have, for the state universities and colleges affiliated, they give 6.15 and 4.11 to the institutions which are deemed to be universities and private. The share of PhD students was actually, for at that time itself, 34 for state public and 21.6 for institutions of national importance. And for deemed university also, it is 21.6. It is as per ISHA 2018-19. Therefore, we find the government can only be able to drive the fundamental research, and applied research has to be driven by the industry. We do not have any other go. Actually, IIT Delhi, its collaboration with industry partners of science and technology, including Dylab, Eklavya, and the nanoscale research facility, and even the AIMS, along with the AIMS, the biomedical related collaborations, and all these are there. And another angle to it is, in India, we have 64%, around 64% of colleges are private. And they either receive some fund or they don't receive any fund at all. And such private colleges provide direct employment to the tune of 12 to 15 crores of citizens. And only they depend on the student fees only. And NEP says 6% of GDP is going to be the expenditure, what is going to be from the government. But we won't know that. That has been the say even in 1960s when Kothari Commission's report was out. But we are yet to realize it. And this has to increase. GER has to increase from 26% to 50%, as our previous speaker said. And the funding, how we are going to be getting, there is no mention of that in the NEP 2020 also. So naturally, they have to come from private enterprises also. And we have seen successive governments have privatized the education, this one for real, there is real need. There is no other go. And the quality of education is one, and the quantity is another challenge for us. Therefore, we need to, in India, all the institutions need to increase the enrollment. At the same time, they do not have the funds to support. Therefore, the only go for us is partnership with the private sector. And the PPPs are going to be of different features. It can be. It can be through the campus, real estate, or infrastructure development for the institution, or R&D facility, like in US universities, where they create research labs, state-of-the-art laboratories with all the amenities, with rich student housing, restaurants, retailers, hotels, apartments, everything. They go a complete self-contained neighborhood they create. And even Harvard University, what they do partner with private entities to construct the combination of office, laboratory, conference, apartment building, everything. The support for research and collaborative space for everything, businesses, incubators, even startups, all these. Therefore, we have got to have the PPP model set in India, and maybe I would be adding more points, even typical cases, how it is going to be in India. My input I'll give later, maybe after the other speakers speak. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. I think madam has given a lot of statistics, and we will be able to, get a fair idea the need for PPP mode of education. Now I invite Ms. Radhika Bhandari to share her views on this particular topic. Ms. Radhika, over to you.
Namaste. First of all, thank you to everybody for having me here and also letting me represent the aviation industry. I just have a different angle regarding this whole PPP model, and I would also like to talk about a bit about the past, present, and future of India. As we also know that India has always boasted a rich tradition in the area of learning and education since ancient times. As we already know, India was previously known as the Vishwa Guru, a global study destination, and it was also known that people from all over the world, especially countries such as Europe, China, and the Middle East, came to India to get quality education. And one of the most famous educational systems practiced in India in the ancient times was the concept of the Gurukul system. In modern education, the concept of public-private partnership comes across to us as a new concept on an international scale. But for us Indians, when we go back to our roots and talk about the ancient Indian knowledge system, our education system was already running on this concept since before the fragmentation and segmentation of our Vedic system. Now, I would like to highlight the concept of Rajashri, a system guided and funded by the then kings and supported by the well-to-do people in the community, and which can very well be compared to the socialist and communist concept of the government currently all over the world. Back then, the relationship between the Guru and the Shishya was so sacred that no fee was taken from the students, and the focused training would be provided by the different segments of the people of the society, such as Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, according to the uniqueness and the talent of the student. Now, when we look at our present day modern standardized educational system introduced by the colonizers, to be more specific, Lord Macaulay, was to produce a very clerical mindset, focusing only on memorization and cramming techniques, which ultimately led to killing of the intellect of the nation. Now, when we look at the Gurukul system, which was always focused on application of knowledge and preparing the students and giving them guidelines and developing their life skills, which was the utmost highest level of holistic education. Even the new education policy that we currently have, it has taken inspiration and been derived from our ancient Gurukul system, and it also states that the world-class institutions such as Nalanda, Takshashila, Vellore, they really focused on skill development in the students, and it is great to see now that our nation is realigning itself and its priorities more towards multidisciplinary skills and skill-based learning of the students. Now, during this talk, I would like to focus on different types of models, which is master apprenticeship model, also previously known as Guru Shishya model, training the trainer model, training and curriculum and partnership model, and also add in a bit more perspective of the aviation industry to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Radhika. We got your views, and I just take this discussion on the another aspects, that what are the examples of PPP mod each one of us can quote from our own state, like say, or from our ecosystem, like say we have someone from Tamil Nadu, we have someone from Andhra. So what kind of a PPP model each one of, or each state governments you had seen, or a central government schemes, like say for example, I can quote that the ITI, that government has come out with the option that the industry partners or anyone can with the start a ITIs, where government is providing 2.5 crore rupees to them, and they have to run these ITIs for skill building. This is one example of a PP mod. Or we can say in Gujarat we have engineering colleges and medical colleges government has set up in PPP mode, or like say entire hospitals has been given to the private players to run and establish a medical college. So this is some of the examples of a PPP model. Can each one of us share any of the other examples which so our audience can aware that when we talk about the PPP model, what we are actually talking? And then I wanted to move to the what are the challenges of this kind of PPP models in India. So I think we will continue. I think we will start with the first ladies first this time. So, Professor Kanchana, can you tell us what are the PPP models is in your mind or in your state are going on, and what kind of a challenges you see that in PPP mod we will have? So, please, yeah.
Yeah, actually, a typical model, I would say, the medical colleges. We have in the country dire shortage of doctors, and that necessitates the PPP model. We can combine the strengths of both the public and the private. We have in every district the hospitals, the government hospitals, and we have the private colleges. Let's create the link. In some places like Gujarat and Karnataka, I think they exist. We can go for combining the proficiency, the expertise, what we have in the hospitals, the training, what is required for the young doctors who are getting educated from there, and they would be getting enough experience. It's going to be win-win for both. And ultimately, both the society and the learner all are going to be benefited. And the success is naturally going to be dependent on how the divide between the public and the private, the responsibility is explored. It has to be at all levels. Very critical assessment by the policy makers ought to be there. As far as the medical college example is concerned, I think it's actually very possible. And beyond that also, another thing is the global internationalization of education. We are going to be having the global education expanding very rapidly. Even already we have around 1 million students of India following reputable transnational education programs, and all such programs involve some form of PPP already. And we have got to Indian universities, and we as a whole, with so huge a population, are to compete internationally and domestically in terms of education and research. And all these are going to be possible with the big corporates working, aligning themselves with engineering institutions like ours, the medical colleges with the hospitals, and as our moderator said, even the ITA, unless we have the corporates informing or letting the students, the trainers, also know what the requirements of industries are, with the AML all pervading into everything, we cannot just be going for the age-old ITA certificates to be the main focus. We have got to get the very recent Industry 4.0 is in front of us. What are going to be the necessary things, right from the cyber physical systems, right from the 3D, what we are going to be making, all these are going to be the points which the industry and the institutions together in whatever level, right from the ITA level, the diploma and the engineering degree holder, even beyond that, the research, everywhere for different levels of coordination, we need to have the PPP existing. That's what would be my input, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Radhika, your views, what are the models you can see when we say PPP or in a higher education? Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Parag, so I would just, talking about the aviation field to be more specific, I would just like to give you a brief in the sense, so when we look at the aviation field, since the 1990s, already the government and private companies have been carrying out the PPP model. So what happens is, even if you look at the example of Mumbai or Delhi airports as well, so the revamping of these airports were already done by private sector companies. Now, moving on to, I would like to give you two examples. So when I talk about WIA as the company, over here, we really focus on providing students all the practical training because we're the only institute in an entire India to have a Boeing 737 where we give the students all the life training. So what happens is the students are able to have a more skill-based training. And another example of the aviation sector, so a sister company which is AAA as well. So we got into a PPP model with the government. There are a lot of airstrips which are not being used by the government currently. So about let's say 13 years back, we got in touch with the government to revamp the entire airstrip. And since then, we have been using the airstrip for all the functions, and we are also carrying a lot of MRO activities for the same. So it is very possible to do it, and in the sense, but yes, of course, there are challenges which come along with it as well. So when we talk about challenges, it is, again, we would be requiring ease of norms, more flexibility in training schedules, and more, we would also be requiring more removal of the bureaucratic norms as well. So these are a couple of things that I would like to highlight when it comes to the aviation sector. And when it comes to aircraft maintenance engineering training as well, we have done a lot of tie-ups with different companies, and be it a government company or different private companies as well. So we try to work on the skill development of the students.
Thank you, Ms. Radhika. I think, can Professor Rao elaborate on the kind of model is there in Andhra or in the South regarding the PPP models in higher and technical educations? Professor Rao.
Yeah. So I think all our panelists are in agreement that PPP is the right mode to take forward the higher education in the country. So if we look at, we cannot compare the turnkey projects or the industrial establishments in which PPP mode is very successful and very effectively done. And we cannot just visualize the same to happen in educational institutions. So this is a different, altogether a different arena, a different service model. So where we should expect that every institution should be allowed to function with some kind of autonomy. And if we look at the success stories, we see either in public sector or private sector, the top rated institutions are there in the country and delivering high quality products, but not a combined PPP mode. We could find any such performer in education sector. In our state, say the state participation in with private institutions is very limited. At one point of time, I think before 1984, the majority of the higher educational institutions are government aided institutions. Though private managements used to run, but the government used to support the private institutions for say compensating the salary bill of the teaching and non-teaching, and also providing some developmental grant. But after 1984, the government has taken a decision not to support the private institutions, and all those institutions that are there at that point of time, they continue to have the facility of the grants in it. So that number is now relatively becoming smaller and smaller. So there are a huge number of private institutions have come up. And unfortunately, what we could see is the majority of the institutions are, for the namesake, they are unable to attract the students. So though they have developed the capacity, they could not able to attract the students because of the poor quality standards. That is very clear. Now, the reasons that we found in those areas is that they are going with a business model. Business model is making profit out of the fees they collect, or the other model is that they get the land allotment from the government, and after some time the land becomes very valuable and it is a real estate proposition. So now in the I wanted to put before you that the model that we are thinking of should provide clear autonomy, and the continuation or the promotion or the change of management should happen based on the measurement on key performance indicators. So there should be KPIs, well defined, practicable, and based on that a reporting system. Now of course the technology is coming in handy, so knowing what is happening in one institution is not difficult. You can have a dashboard and on which everything is available every time. So monitoring through technology is very easy now. So now, if the freedom is not given to the people who are working in educational institutions, if the bureaucracy, red tapeism, or the profit orientation, business models, if they combine, I think we cannot achieve the goal of developing quality education in this country. It's not expansion that just matters. We have to give clear focus on quality of education, and that comes only when an autonomous model is developed, supporting financially by government and the private enterprises or private people, and monitoring it by an independent body, and based on that there will be change in management of various institutions. So I think that kind of model may work in this country. And another thing is that we have to definitely see the distribution of institutions in various regions to provide accessibility to the people. We should not encourage migration for the sake of education. And we should not say that only metros and cities can provide high quality education, but not the institutions established in the semi-urban and rural parts. So that kind of the uniformity in standards have to be ensured by designing a right kind of policy and guideline. So I think I can leave it to the rest for sharing their view. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rao. So I think if you look, into the PPP model, so like one of the more recent example is the triple IT, right? All the triple IT government of India has set up in the PPP mod. Like there's an industry partner, government of India will provide a land, and the running is a responsibility of a private partner or industry partner. So that is another model. So if you see, if I summarize a various model, you will find that in some model, government is providing either land. In some models, government either providing the land and building. In some, models, government. So at the end, running and continuity of a education or a quality of education is a responsibility of a private partner. And that's where we say that private partner brings the expertise, private party brings the know-how to run the provide a quality education, and government provides the sum of the resources, and that's where the win-win situations comes. Government do not have a burden of running the institution for long, and they can create a lot of good institutions, whether it's a technical education, whether it's a skill education, whether it's a higher education. But as many of our colleagues have explained, the bureaucracy, the kind of autonomy, and the kind of mindset which government has to brings onto the table is again a major challenge. I go lastly to the Professor Rabindra Chandra to share his views on the kind of a PPP model and what kind of challenge he envisaged when this kind of model will be implemented in India.
Thank you, sir. I think all the panelists have agreed on the need for a PPP model, both because of the number of population and the financial status that the country has. We have understood. Now, Professor Rao talked about the need for purpose and guidelines. And he talked about for example, how to reach a DER 50% by 2035, how to get the human resource. And finally, Professor Rai talked about two things, purpose and guidelines. I must tell you that my experience in West Bengal is rather negative. Although the government made every state chief secretary the person for, I'm not about the higher education. In fact, Radhika talked about the need for a Gurukul system. I think we need more of skilled people than the higher education people, because you can't give employment to everybody. So given that system, I myself was involved in two such things. But you see, if you look at the history of the country, the AICT in 1994 talked about the EDB, Educational Development Board Bank. It is not happened. Then in 2007, Department of Economic Affairs talked about PPP. So it is not a new thing. We are there all the time. Planning Commission talked about this in 2008, but the problems remain. And I think I would give three ways, we can and we should make it a success. The three things I think which Professor Rai mentioned or others also mentioned, sharing a common vision between all the stakeholders. It is not only the education and also not the government. It is the industry as well. Not only industry, but society as well. So sharing a common vision, the cause, the purpose, the first one. The second one is mutual commitment and mutual honor between collaborators. This is an important thing. One just takes the accountability, the other takes responsibility. It's not fair. So there's a need for that. And third one, there has to be a commitment for all the parties to take the country to a higher level. In order to do that, I suggest that we need to organize a roundtable with all the stakeholders, including Planning Commission, AICT, UGC, Ministry of Finance, Education, Industry, and even the local government, and agree on three things. First, what is the cause? What is the purpose? What are we going to do? It has to be elaborately understood by all the parties. Secondly, we must choose the party, private party. As some of you said, there's a profit motive all the time. No, it should not be. There's a need to have a reasonable profit, but not over profit. How do you do that? So there has to be a need for commitment by all the parties, particularly the private party, that we want to do it. And I think you talked about, Radhika talked about Gurukul system, where there's a need for that kind of, limitation of the profit, not over profit. The third one is the collaboration between parties, PPP, as equal partners. One must honor the other. So I think I agree that it's needed. I think all of us agreed on that. You people say some of it successful, some of it successful. Do you know that AICT, and NSDC gave loans of many thousands of crores, not 83% have not been recovered yet. Of course, that's not the fault of the private party only, but the skill development did not take place the way they envisaged. So I think we have to go to the roots and think together how to do it. I think this election, if we can, sir, make a kind of awareness amongst all the parties, say CII on the one hand, the government of finance, finance ministry of finance, ministry of education on the other hand, and the educators, and then organize a get together of like-minded people to think, elaborately find out what is the purpose, and then how we are committed to that. So those people who want to make money should not be allowed, sir. So I think we have to find a solution. My experience is not a good one. I was involved in two, both failed. But I can give you from experience, one this I had is ISRO. When Professor U.R. Rao was the chairman, we needed liquid hydrogen to go to the space. Who does that research? Who will do that? Who knows about it? It was done on a cost-plus basis in a transparent manner. I think we have to find something about it. I don't know the answer. But I suggest all of us put together and put our brain, mind, and with the commitment and the cause. I think that's what I have to say, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. So, instead, if you see, like recently, UP government announced a very mega drive of PPP mode, handing over engineering diploma colleges to the private party. And if you look into the success of that, there's a limited success. People are not ready to come forward to participate in this PPP mode. The only reason, as what Professor Chandra, rightly mentioned, is about the treating the partner as an equal partner. If you look into all the PPP agreements, in a government for education sector, it's only favoring one side. That is a public side, not the private side. So if you look into that, until unless that mentality of equal partners in PPP mode will be there, we will face a lot of challenges in implementing PPP model in an Indian higher education. I think we need to take some questions. I think I had one question only was there. It was about how can PPP mode of model can help in terms of increasing the enrollment. So what are anyone would like to? I think Professor Kanchana would like to say something. Yeah, go ahead, Professor Kanchana.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add to the previous point also. That is, presently we have the PPP model only to the level of MOUs for research, on-job training, upskilling of industries and corporates, and social marketing. All these only. But we once missed in Industry 3.0 when semiconductor fabrication facility was there for us. We did not catch it up, and that should not happen for Industry 4.0 also. And in terms of the quantity, as previous speaker said, in India, on an average, around 690 students are there in one higher education institution. Whereas in China, it is 16,000 students per the industry for the institution campus. And this bigger institutions are easy to manage. That is a very typical example. And therefore, in order not to miss the Industry 4.0, all the industries should come together along with the universities, along with the training institutions in the case of ITA, diploma level institutions in whatever form they are to be there. And I think Industry 4.0 is the thing which we should go for, never missing. It would be difficult. The infrastructure, actually the participant, the public and the private, if we as an institution have the expertise, what we do best and what the industry do best, both have got to be complementing each other. And that should be happening and the effective implementation could follow it up. If we do not follow it up, once again, the same case of Industry 3.0 and Industry 4.0 is going to be happening. We are going to be having so huge a tertiary population in front of us, and if they are not given directions, if they are not given a chance to actually educate themselves, it is going to be even more chaos. And it would go for this sort of a PPP. It may have some problems or the other. There will be some disadvantages, like the risks more to the private participant, and the governance totally is going to be very crucial. And the agreement, as previous speaker said, is going to be very, very critical. And the result also is going to be how the Industry 4.0 is going to be leading the country, and how the overall global market is going to be there for India. Everything is going to be there. But despite everything, we have got to be taking the attempt. And we have got to be starting at a lower scale in each and every institution. We have got to go for research collaboration. I would say even for the industries which are there, they have got to be given with sufficient impetus from the government also to have their own problems given to the education institutions for solutions. Even the PhD students can take the industry problems as their own problems to solve, and those solutions and this sort of practices, they are going to be the best practices, and the bilateral relations are going to be there. And we are going to be having in front of us the foreign education institution also. And in that case, we have got to be creating jobs locally and abroad. We have got to cater to, because we have the maximum manpower, and our manpower has to go to the other countries to compensate for whatever be the required manpower requirement, and the technology transfer has to happen. And all these are the very important things, I would say, sir. And actually, the other question you said, I missed it out partly, please.
Sorry. I think Miss Radhika, you wanted to say something. Can you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Parag, thank you. Just very quickly, I wanted to add in 3 brief points regarding the PPP model. So, just the government should be impartial between the government and private companies. One is that for the PPP model, and second, a lot of diversification of the government body needs to be done for better communication and permissions, so that this can be carried out effortlessly. And third, removal of fee regulation, because education is a very expensive field, and more specifically aviation. And if the government does want to control fee, then they need to put in more funding through the format of PPP.
I think that's a very valid point. The government wants the private resources, but do not allow them the autonomy and freedom to operate. And that was the major challenge of a PPP project, that you want everything from private side, but you wanted the control and limited, on table you are putting for the PPP mod projects, in particularly education. It is happening into the, airports, it's happening into the port, it's happening into the shipping, it's happening into the, all the other aspects of economy except education. And that's where the mindset of a government has to be changed. And I think there is a one question, is there, that whether PPP model is already in policy level from government or it's in discussion level. The answer is there, that the PPP model is already implementing in few of the states, few of the areas, and we have to learn from this PPP experience and move forward to establish in a larger scale the higher education institution or a technical institution or a skill institutions in PPP mode. Both sides has to be taken care, because many government relaxation has been misused by the many private player, and which is again forcing government to restrict their thing. So I think we have a limited time, and I think I would like to conclude and thank all the panelists, because we had a time up to 3:30, and we are overshooting that. So once again, I thank you each and every panelist for contributing their views. All our audience and listener who has listened carefully, and hope we all have a wonderful discussion and wonderful learning out of this panel discussion, and hope to meet each one of panelists in a future in some of the physical conclave, because now we can wish that quickly COVID-19 can go, we all come out with the good health from this pandemics, and we deliberate our points more with the free mind and with the more open mind, relaxed mind, I can say, because each one of us in pressure of healthcare system as well as their impact, economic impact on their institutions. So I again thank you, Alex, and all the organizers of this event to inviting all of us and organizing this panel discussion. So thank you all. Thank you. It's a wonderful panel and it's a very nice discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.